about some of the challenges that you've faced so far, or that you feel like the industry faces when it comes to ecology and forestry?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed so far is the public perception. I think people don't like change, and they can see forestry as quite a negative thing, not necessarily just Tilhill, but forestry in general across the board. I feel like the best way to address that is through education and engagement, reaching out to the public, or whether it's just keen birders in the area, or local enthusiasts, and engaging with them early doors and helping them understand that we're not here to destroy habitat. We're here to, we want to try and do our best for the environment as well. At the same time, there's so many benefits to forestry. It's not just cutting down trees and selling it for wood. There's a lot more to that. The time scale, it's such a, you're talking like 40 years. It's a long time, and a lot can change in 40 years, as we've seen through climate change. I think engagement is the best way to address that, and building these relationships. And even for myself, I might have quite a bit of experience in small scale ecology, but I have to educate myself as well. Forestry is certainly a bigger scale than anything I've been used to in the past. So yeah, it's a constant learning experience for myself as well.
Incredible. Can you talk a little bit more about the perceptions of forestry? Because we have been talking about it a lot publicly lately. We wanted to try and educate the public a little bit more on what's going on out there in the forest. But obviously we still do get groups declaring that there's greenwashing going on, or that forestry is not sustainable, or it's not good for wildlife. Can you talk about some of the biggest perceptions you've come across, and just unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the biggest perception I've come across is that productive forests are ecological deserts, which I don't agree with. I think forestry practices have changed a lot. Ultimately, kind of productive forestry came in because of the World War. And then it was just a case of, right, we're going to plant as many trees of the same species in an area that we can. And there was no regulation to it. There was no thought about it. They just needed timber. But that's all changed, There are still remnants of that old management. There are still stands of purely just Sitka spruce, which are now being felled. But when that gets replanted, it's not just going to be pure Sitka spruce, because guidance has changed and grants have changed. Will there still be Sitka spruce? Yeah, but is it just going to be that? No, you're going to get a mix of different species which are going to be resistant to change, climate change. And as well, you'll get a mix of broadleaf in there. You're protecting habitats that are already there. And I mean, even in some areas where they're planted on previously deep peat, they won't replant, because the guidance has changed, like I was saying. Having this mix of species, having a diversity, is going to be beneficial for wildlife, because you've got different habitats which support different species over a different time period. Like I was saying before, it's such a long-term, large-scale process. In the early stage, you've got young plantation, which is going to support different kinds of species, compared to 20, 30 years later when it's a bit more mature, And then if you've got a big area of forestry as well, where you've got different stands of different ages, you've got that rotation. So yeah, you might have a young plantation here, which will be lost as it matures, but then you'll have another young plantation nearby to support those species, and they can move around. The concept that productive forestry is ecological desert is just, yeah, I don't agree with it. And there's even research to suggest that, conifer plantations support a greater amount of biodiversity than some native woodlands. But it's all contextual. It depends where you are, how much woodland have you got in your area. And, there is, again, research to suggest that your conifer plantations in areas where you don't have much woodland are going to be very beneficial to wildlife, because you don't have much woodland in that area. That's a pro of it. And, everybody likes a woodland. You like walking around woodlands, public love it. You walk your dogs there. it's a nice place to be. So it's very good for your mental health, your physical health. And that's personally what I like about the job. I like being out and about in a woodland because it's a nice environment to be in. You can see different things, whether it's red squirrels, you might even see a raptor. And I think as well, because it looks very destructive when you come to taking down a woodland, it isn't nice, it doesn't look great, but it's the long-term plan. That's a very short period for a very long-term benefit. Not just for wildlife, you're talking carbon capture as well, which is obviously becoming even more of a hot topic with climate change. We've just had this huge heat wave and showing things are probably worse than we expected. So the planting of, trees is to capture carbon to help combat climate change is becoming even more prevalent. And I think a lot of different people with different backgrounds have different goals as to what they want to achieve with conservation, wildlife management, forest management. We've got to all work together and compromise ultimately. If we're looking at a woodland creation scheme, you might get one of the things at the moment, curlew, and curlew are in decline quite rapidly, and it is something that needs to be addressed. We don't want to negatively affect curlew where we're planting, but if we can work together with organisations to bring a benefit to not just curlew but other things as well, then we will. We've got to be very pragmatic about these things. You can't just have one track mind. You've got to try and you can't just focus on one species, because that'll negatively affect other species. You might positively affect one, but you might negatively affect 10. And the net gain from that it's not great. So if you can provide the habitat, and you're providing benefits for a number of species. So yeah, it's about compromise, working together, engagement, and having a lot of open communication, and I think that's the best way to do it.